So some of the studies I've done looked at different exposures to retail resources. So the fact that Black neighborhoods were disproportionately exposed to fast food, which I'm actually going to talk about later in the community building seminar later in the year. The fact that Black neighborhoods often had less access to a variety of different kinds of retail resources. And so as I did this work, I also became interested not only in the presence or absence of these resources, but their aesthetics and the aesthetics of the streetscapes in which they were embedded. And so if you had a picture here, you would see this kind of, it's a screenshot from Google with of a liquor store in Chicago. And it's just this really kind of bunker-like kind of fortress-looking building. There are no windows, it doesn't look like a place where you're going to engage in any kind of commerce. And so that kind of aesthetic, some have called siege ready, right? It's ready to sort of withstand some sort of siege from this kind of despised neighborhood community. And so it tells consumers, right, that their money is welcome, but that their food is despised. And so, so what you see in this, again, no windows, a kind of a bunker-like structure, oftentimes festooned with barbed wire, you might have bulletproof glass and that kind of thing. So, so that was one aspect of the kind of aesthetics that I was interested in studying. And then we know from large literature that the neighborhood quality matters. So when you're thinking about disorder, whether physical or social, I'm going to be focusing on physical disorder. But social disorder are things like prostitution, gambling, drug dealing. Physical disorder comprises nuisances such as litter, graffiti, abandoned cars, and the like. And so voluminous literature has shown that neighborhood disorder is associated with a number of health outcomes: increased depression, psychological stress, lower self-rated health, more feelings of social isolation and distrust, and a number of negative outcomes. And so, but what's interesting is that perceptions of disorder are not universal. So even features such as litter or graffiti, which we think sort of have a very assumed meaning for everyone, are in fact very much based on individual characteristics and social context. So this is a quote from Jane Jacobs' landmark book published in 1961, The Death and Life of Great American Cities. But there's a quote where she talks about what happens when the children in the neighborhood pass by and how they drop all their little candy wrappers as they go by in the morning. She kind of sweeps them up and thinks, how do they have so many candy? How do they eat so much candy so early in the day? And so it's interesting because that quote really illustrates well the fact that one person will walk by and think, there's all this litter on the ground, it's disgusting. And Jane Jacobs thinks, it's this kind of irreverent and benign manifestation of day-to-day neighborhood processes. And so that very much suggests that people read the street differently based on their own individual orientation to the neighborhood. It's also true that race very much figures into how people see disorder. So Sampson and Raudenbush have shown that all else being equal, the more Black residents that there are in a neighborhood, the more people perceive disorder in that neighborhood. That's above the objective disorder that's already been observed and so on. So in this project, I'm really trying to sort of tease apart these ideas about, what is disorder, how do people perceive it, what are the kind of factors that go into what makes something disordered, or, and then also its converse, which is sort of a more charming kind of experience, right? So again, the way Jane Jacobs presents that description of the neighborhood, the fact that children were dropping litter was really actually charming for her, right? Because it was really a signal for her of a well-functioning, kind of busy street life. And so, so in this project, I'm looking at how the different ways in which individual characteristics are associated with perceptions of charm and disorder. So, so one of the things that some of the data that that I'm analyzing. So we did a whole bunch of different studies. One was we showed people, we showed African American respondents Google Maps Street View pictures of different streetscapes. and which were, more or less sort of along the lines of what many consider to be charming or not. And we asked people to rate their level of attractiveness on a quantitative measure. And so with that, I'll be able to look at sort of how things like socioeconomic status, so education level, how gender, how age, and some of those other kind of characteristics relate to the ratings that people give, because we know that those things also matter. And then we also showed a separate set of photos where we asked open-ended kinds of questions like, how comfortable would you be walking down the street? Who do you think lives there? What do you think some of the problems in the neighborhood are, and so on. So here again, and so it's really interesting, just in some of the preliminary scans of the data that I've looked at. For example, one photo we had was of a kind of suburban-looking street with a house with an American flag on the porch. And so that photo really pulled one of two ways. Either people saw that as the flag sort of drew out these feelings about the community must be sort of warm and friendly and had a strong sense of community, if not outright patriotism. And then the other end is that people saw that flag as a sign of trouble. Like potentially this is a street where it's really, like the flag is really more this aggressively kind of nationalistic display that might portend trouble for an African American walking down that street. So when I so that same kind of set of questions, I want to try to ask Marseille residents as well. So that, race doesn't figure in quite the same way, and I'm going to be interested to see the ways in which streetscapes here are read differently by people, and the extent to which the same kind of processes that are happening for respondents in the United States, the extent to which that's true here as well. The other part of the data, though, this is the one thing you can see. The other part of the project was, so the project title is subjective and objective, assessments of trauma disorder. And so this is the objective part, although again, we have to take that with a grain of salt, but where this is data that we collected from Harlem and Bedford-Stuyvesant, two of the largest black neighborhoods in New York City. This is Harlem shown here. So we had research assistants walking down the streets with GPS computers and recording different kinds of neighborhood features that we wanted to code. And one of the ones that we were coding, one of the neighborhood features was fortification. That's another word for the way that I describe that liquor store, These kinds of very heavily defended kind of buildings. And so these circles indicate everywhere in Harlem where we ended up finding evidence of fortification. So a larger circle means more of it, so it's aggregated to census block groups. So that's the more objective part, The subjective part is the people's responses and how they perceive trauma and disorder differently. And then the objective part is really trying to look at how some of these features of trauma and disorder tend to cluster spatially. Are they related to neighborhood characteristics? And what other kinds of neighborhood liabilities or researches are they related to? So this I'm doing in collaboration with a colleague who's a spatial statistician.